The chassis guys at Cadillac need to sit down with the designers. An intervention is in order. Maybe we can help. Engineering is responsible for the ATS-V's superlative chassis, which features steering, brakes, suspension, and tires that work in symphonic harmony. There are simply no atonal notes as the ATS-V moves down the road. Each instrument is perfectly tuned and balanced and feels just right. This car, engineered and built in Michigan, flat out feels better, is easier to drive quickly, and is more fun than the BMW M3 and the Mercedes-AMG C63. German chassis engineering has met its match. The chassis righteousness and the joy it generates never diminish. It doesn't matter if you're plucking through a canyon road, banging on a racetrack, or humming straight down I-5 with the cruise set at 75. But while the chassis is delightful, a dull interstate drive is when the interior's dissonance begins to annoy. A mishmash of materials, textures, and finishes, it has all the restraint and editing of a Mardi Gras float. Optional, $2,300 Recaro chairs, absent on our photo car, which also lacked the $6,195 track performance package of the ATS-V we ran numbers on, are supportive and look great, but don't examine them too closely or you might notice that the leather is pulling away. And make sure that you spec the $300 micro suede wrapped steering wheel or you'll get a leather covering that might as well be vinyl. Beyond the steering wheel are gauges that are more appropriate for a Chevy Cruze. Lexus did better gauges 25 years ago. At least the large rectangular information display is a better balance of form and function. The same can't be said of the large touchscreen infotainment system, dubbed Q. Often unresponsive and difficult to operate at speed, the screen actually manages complex commands like entering a destination into the optional navigation system with well-thought-out logic. What ends up annoying is the stuff you do constantly, like adjusting the volume with a touch-sensitive slider or changing radio stations or tracks. Functions that should require a quick tap of the screen end up requiring 2, 3, or a punch. Meanwhile, you've wandered onto the rumble strips. Rumblings from the backseat occupants also are inevitable. They'll likely complain about the lack of legroom, the high beltline, and how hard it is to get in and out due to the small door opening. From the driver's seat, the ATS-V's design negatively affects outward visibility. Cadillac design clearly won over practicality. Mercedes C63 and the BMW M3 don't compromise usability and practicality nearly as much as Cadillac. But at the same time, the Germans don't build road-going concept cars, Cadillac does. Still, the beauty of the ATS-V is outweighed by the annoyances it creates. We can't find major faults with the 464 horsepower twin-turbocharged V6 under the vented hood. Closely related to the 420 horsepower engine in the CTS-V Sport, the ATS-V's power plant has lighter turbocharger turbines that improve response time. There's a slight grittiness as the engine spins past the 3,500 revolutions per minute torque peak, but it's only really noticeable if you've recently driven, say, the silky V8 of the Mercedes-AMG C63S. All 445 lb-ft of the 3.6 liters torque arrive in a steady and linear manner that belies the engine's forced reality. Instead of boom rushing the driveline with a massive wave of torque, the engine acts more like a large displacement, naturally aspirated big block. With the 8-speed automatic doing the shifting, the ATS-V Sedan hit 60 miles per hour in 3.9 seconds, 3/10 quicker than the manual ATS-V Coupe. Now it's time for us to intervene. Cadillac, we can't sit idly by and enable these design lapses. You have a problem and you must admit it. The designers need editing and it's time to do something about it. It's not fair to the engineers who made the ATS-V the best driving car in its class.